Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Looking around the globe at water. Water is life, and as we've added to this in these programs on the Emerald Planet TV, water and oxygen is life. But we're looking at the creation of new water. And this comes from stormwater, groundwater, whatever they call it in your community, it's the same. Is that in many communities, there's drought. Other communities, there's an excess of water, just as what we're having in most of the East Coast these days of the United States and many other countries around the globe. So how do we handle that? So this particular show is going to be about how do we capture, store, and then process and use this new water so we reduce the amount of the existing water that we're taking from the ground, the rivers, and the lakes, and to use this water in ways that's most purposeful and at the same time will help citizenry. We have with us a real expert on this stormwater capture. This is Brian Rodgers. He's the Director of Conservation and Sustainability for the Constituent Services Worldwide. And we're going to be talking about the RiverSmart Homes program of the Department of Energy and Environment in Washington, D.C. And we're going to label this one Safe Water, Save the Rivers and the Streams. Brian, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Well, good afternoon, Sam. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It's good to have you with us. And thank you very much for your leadership on the rain barrels, which is what we're going to be talking about, and all different aspects of the rain barrels. But CSW, tell us a little bit about that, and then let's really get into this Save Water, Save the Streams and Rivers.
Well, CSW is in Washington, D.C. The area is divided into wards. So CSW is a Ward 7 based company, which is located in Southeast DC, was its origins. And it started from just a little program that we were renovating a basketball and tennis court that was unused. And so we got a grant through the Department of Environment RiverSmart Communities program. And we removed the surface of the tennis court to set up and use the understones to build a community garden. So that's where it started from. Mm-hmm. Since then, we've been working with this Summer Youth Employment Program, Green Zone Environmental Program, and we've established a relationship with the University of District of Columbia. Mm-hmm. And from there, we developed a program called the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program. Well, now we train and educate district residents for job training in the program. So okay. We're actually producing green employees.
That's fantastic. The RiverSmart Homes program, and we're looking at a teacher here that's actually showing off one of your rain barrels. But RiverSmart Homes, and then they, of course, have RiverSmart Communities. Why are they focusing on rain barrels?
Well, it's just one aspect of a five-stage program. The program itself consists of 5 elements that are offered to DC residents. 1 is trees, 2 rain barrels, 3 rain gardens, 4 what they call bayscaping, which is basically conservation landscaping.
Mhm.
And 5 is permeable pavement.
Mhm.
So they offer these options to district residents. They come out and do an audit, see what elements you can put in your yards, and then from there, they tell you which ones you can use. And our department basically is for rain barrels, and that's what I do. I do the installations of the rain barrels for them.
Mhm. Well, and also you're doing much more than that because you're doing the consultancy. You're actually very much involved in training, and it's quite impressive what you're doing. We saw the first rain barrel, a nice round one, and this is called the Hydra. So why do we have these different shapes as far as the rain barrels?
Well, because Washington, D.C. has sometimes postage stamp yards and very unique setup situations. So the barrel options kind of give homeowners the option of turning to whatever fits their yard and their aesthetics the best.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the style of this one. Actually, we've installed one of these and also the round ones. But looking at the gutter pipe coming down, you have a splitter in this uh, downspout. Tell us what that splitter is all about and how does that work? And actually, how does that work in concert with the barrel or the hydra itself?
Well, that instrument is called a Y diverter. If you look closer at it, you'll see a little metal extension, and that's how you switch the barrel from being on and off.
Mhm.
So whichever direction that switch is pushed tells the direction that the water is going to go. So if it was to push to the right, it's going into the right. If it's pushed to the left, it goes to the left.
Mhm. Yeah, and so the whole thing about this is really to control it. And now I put this one in purposely because I want to show people that you actually really do some work. And let me go back to that. And this is very important as far as these tools are concerned because in your training, you're teaching people that have never been involved many times with any kind of hands on experience or working with tools. So, what are we looking at here as the basic kit in order to be able to work with the rain barrels, the hydra, and the other forms that we're going to soon be seeing?
Well, basically, though, yeah, Sam, you're exactly right. Those are some of the tools of the trade. The big yellow instrument you see there is what's called a sawzall. That's what we use to cut downspouts and gutters. Inside that bucket, you have a very old cornucopia of tools because as many decisions that you have to make in uh, installing the barrels is as many downspouts as a variety of downspouts that you have. So you have to be prepared for a number of different situations. What I like to say is kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You have to figure out how to get that water into the barrel. So what's flipped over on the ground is assortment of screws and other devices that are different connections that we use to change from Phillips to flathead screws and things like that. So
Right. Yeah.
it's a big thing.
Yeah, no, it's very important what you're doing, and to have the right tools is absolutely critical. I was raised on a ranch, and I mean, we had boxes of different kinds of implements and all that. But looking at the side of this, this is the hydra again. Tell us what we're seeing here. We have this hose coming out. We have a red spigot at the bottom. And then we actually have cinder blocks, all the way under this. Tell us this configuration and why is this important?
So, number one is always going to be balance. You got to make sure that barrel, when it's filled up with water, can handle and sit still in the exact place you want it to. So that's the configuration of the cinder blocks. Over the course of time, we've learned that certain configurations work best for certain barrels.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one that works well for the hydra. As you can see, this is one of the unique uses for the hydra. It is able to run flat up against wall surfaces.
Mhm.
So therefore, unlike the octagonal barrel, which would sit and protrude more into, say, walk spaces and ways you can pass by,
Mhm.
this Hydra is a slimmer model. So it kind of runs north and south more.
Right.
But you see the little black hose that's going in there, that's for overflow. So when the barrel fills, it gets to that point, automatically the water will come down that tube and into the existing downspout.
Mhm. And
There's
then at
one,
the bottom, you have the red-handled spigot.
yeah, that's what we try to do is always assess which way the homeowner is going to use the water. So we always try to point the spigot in the most convenient way to service the resident.
Mhm. Okay, fantastic. Now here's the octagonal one. Very different configuration of what we just saw. So tell us the difference between these two, besides just their shape, and also we can see there's a great deal of difference as far as where you're locating it uh, at the house itself.
Well, this one is called a Riversides or Rain Grid barrel. As you can see, it has an extension on the back, and much like where the Hydra is, the Hydra has that device that switches the barrel on and off. The black box on the back of this barrel serves as the same thing. It has a tube that's inserted into the back of the box, and you pull that tube out for maintenance. And also, it has on the back of it, whether it's in collect mode or bypass mode. When it's in bypass mode, it will go down to the downspout that's underneath of the box.
Mhm.
So that's how it bypasses. It won't go into the barrel. It go out through the downspout extended at the bottom.
Now, why is it so important? We saw this with the Hydra where you have the bypass or the overflow unit. Why is that so important?
Good point. That's part of the winterization process.
Mhm.
During the winter, of course, you don't want frozen water inside of a barrel. These barrels are mostly recycled plastic,
Mhm.
so therefore there can be expansion and contraction, and therefore do some kind of damage to either spigots or the barrel themselves.
Okay. All right. Now these we're going to go through these quickly because we've just run out of time. Just a short snippet of each of these, why they're different, why they look different, and then we only have about 60 seconds left to do this. And the last
Okay.
question is, what do you see for the expansion of this RiverSmart Homes Barrels program in the future? But let me just go through these and tell us
Sure.
what you think we're going and we'll just let people see these, but where we're going over the next 5, 10, or 15 years, Brian.
Okay, so basically these barrels are all barrels that technically would be supported under another aspect of the RiverSmart Home program called the rebate program. This barrel here is also with the District Department of DC Water has a program also called Downspout Disconnect, where these barrels are used to help disconnect. Same purpose basically as the RiverSmart Homes barrel. This is a different kind of barrel. This is a Bushman. Totally different kind of barrel, but about the same gallon quantity as these round ones. Here, you're seeing a technique called daisy chaining. This is where you make two barrels function as one. So the barrel that's up above the lower barrel serves as the catcher, and then when that fills up, it transfers into the lower barrel.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to go on this. What do you see for the expansion next 5, 10, and 15 years? And you got about 10 seconds now to do that.
Just different variations of barrels because, like I said, the unique situations of DC's barrels, DC's homeowners, and just more involvement from the community as they get more educated in the reasons why to use these barrels.
This is Brian Rodgers from the Constituent Services Worldwide as we create the Emerald Planet. As we're talking about the creation of new water, this is really a topic that's going on all across the globe, all 214 countries and territories, is that we're running out of the groundwater and in some places even the surface water. But yet they're still having increased rains in many countries, as well as most of the East Coast and sometimes in the Midwest of the United States. So how do we take the stormwater, groundwater, whatever it's being called in your local community, and capture that, process it, and then put it to good use? I have a real expert that's with us. This is Brian Rodgers. He's the Director of Conservation and Sustainability, Constituent Services Worldwide. And we're going to be talking about the rain barrels, the use by the homeowners, and how do you curb stormwater runoff so it's not creating damage and being put to good use. Brian, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Hello, Sam. How are you?
Now, looking at the collaboration CSW, your Constituent Services Worldwide, and the DOEE of Washington, D.C., why do they actually work with contractors such as yourself to make this program and expand the RiverSmart Homes and the RiverSmart Communities project beyond the government itself?
Well, good question. One of the reasons is that we are more in touch with the community at large in a lot of respects. We're kind of their vehicles for information and spreading knowledge. Also, though, it's more cost efficient to use contractors rather than use federal employees or district employees to do these kind of projects. We can mobilize quicker and faster.
Right. And also you have the expertise. I wanted to kick off with this because what we're really focused on in this show, Brian, are the homeowners and why they want to be involved in the project. So we see this sign here, clean water starts here. How is that true? And how does this rain barrel right behind this mom with her two children emphasize the fact clean water starts here?
Well, this is one of the first vehicles of any good program, is to get your population wanting to participate. And through this program, homeowners get to actually learn about how using things like rain barrels and rain gardens help to treat gray water, and therefore make it easier on the streams and byways to have cleaner water. So this is just one step in the multi-phase process, but everybody can participate. And this program, the RiverSmart Homes program, is very good at showing how individual home owners can make an impact.
Yeah, I just think it's absolutely a marvelous idea. Something that I suggested to the department many years ago was to do something that's very natural, increase the water tables, and at the same time cut down on the loading into the streams and rivers with these severe storms that's happening more and more these days. This is really a cute idea, and this goes to this whole thing about involving the community, particularly children. Why is it so important to have children that we just saw here involved in painting the barrels and being a cute but actually a very necessary part of this particular program, Rain Barrels for the homeowners?
Well, Sam, that goes back to the education factors. By getting youth to participate in this, the message goes home because they convey to their parents what they did today. Also, as you can see on these barrels, it's all sending different messages about what they feel about the environment. So that's really cool. We had a great time. This was a part of the Hickey Run Heroes program, where Langdon Elementary School was the group whose students participated in painting these barrels.
Yeah, I think this is absolutely marvelous. But it doesn't matter what age you are. We're all young at heart. And we're using these rain barrels in very different ways. So we have some that are using it for their home gardens and yards, and others are part of these community gardens, similar to what we're seeing here with these raised grow beds. So how many different uses of rain barrels are there, Brian?
As many as you can count. You got to realize that even before this became more popular in urban cities, that in underserved countries, in underdeveloped countries, they were using this because this is the quickest way to catch water and have it for themselves to use to cook with,
Right.
and do other things, wash everything. So this is nothing brand new. This is just new to urban cities and its uses.
Right.
So in this case, you see here, this is a part of a project that UDC put in association with RiverSmart Communities, one of the other arms of the RiverSmart Homes program. And they constructed about 80 community garden beds. So the residents in that community now can have fresh fruit and vegetables, and the rain barrels helping to water them.
Yeah. And also, too, this is really great exercise. It takes people out of their homes, puts them in the fresh air. They're processing vitamin D from the sun. There's so many benefits from this. But these raised grow beds are just fabulous, because so much of the biomass that would go into the landfill or be washed into the streams, all of a sudden that's now creating mulch and allowing people to grow their own food. But here's a very different configuration. And also it's tied into what we call house and a greenhouse.
Yes, this is what you refer to as a cistern. The difference between a rain barrel and a cistern is, of course, the amount of water it can contain. Cisterns run about 20,000 gallons or more, and that's what's considered more of a cistern. Rain barrels or anything pretty much under that. This is connected, though, to either a hoop house or a greenhouse, and therefore it's being used in one form or another to process water, or could be used for irrigation in the fields. So it could be serving, as you can see, there's some electrical devices attached to it. So therefore it could be serving multi-purpose, have a multi-purpose setting.
Yeah, and this looks like it's actually a sun tracker too, as far as a solar panel is concerned. And that may be used both for the greenhouse and then also for pumping the water. So there's multiplicities of green technologies in this one photograph. Now, I threw this one in here. This is a real monster. We're going to see it again in just a minute. But tell us about this, and why are these larger units becoming now almost as popular as the barrels?
Well, in most cases, you'll see things like this buried underground to serve to be used to do things like, especially like at Woodson Senior High School, they have cisterns buried and they're used to flush their toilets in the school. So in this scenario, though, this homeowner had a situation where she was actually capturing stormwater of a huge rooftop on the left, and on the right, a garage rooftop. So she was trying to contain all that water and capture it, because one of the things that was happening is that it was going over to their neighbor's yard. So here's where this technique is used to help not only keep good neighbors as good neighbors, but to solve a home issue.
And the reason I brought this photograph, and now I have this photograph, which is the one we've just seen, and I'm putting it as how you have this monster, and then all of a sudden it's just like it disappears. And this is the whole thing about it, Brian. Many people say, do I want something that large in my yard? And but actually you can camouflage. You have different colors, different ways of using these. So it's just really incredible how you're adapting this to what's called the built environment, or the inner areas. But this is another use. Tell us what we're seeing here. And I'm going to jump ahead. These are the rain barrels. Jump back. Okay, what's going on as far as the guttering is concerned?
Well, this is a location over in Ward 8 where UDC has 2 hoop houses where you grow seedlings. And of course, it's built on the hard top. So as you can see on the left, that there are stormwater issues when the water comes off of the rooftop. So what they did was install a gutter system. And eventually what we're going to do is not only do some trenching to channel that water toward a conservation planting, but also attach rain barrels so that we can use the water to water that same conservation planting.
Now, this is actually going for aquaponics, hydroponics application, but actually having and capturing this water like this and putting in these much larger rain barrels, which are actually on the inside of the building. And we're going to see some samples of this later on. But this is amazing how you can reduce the amount of water you're taking out of here, DC water, out of the municipal water supply, and using the natural water that's coming in.
Well, actually, Sam, what you're seeing here is an aquaponics system, and in those big, huge containers, usually are schools of fish.
Mm-hmm.
And what the system does is that they take the fish excrement and use it as a source of nutrition for the seedlings and plantings. So this rain barrel here is connected to that for some internal purpose in the system, and that's just one more way you can use a rain barrel.
I tell you, it's just amazing the way of doing it. We're going to go through these again. We have so much to discuss, Brian, and thank you for being with us. But I'm going to go through this. Just tell us what we're seeing as we stroll through these different rain barrels, and then I'll have a final question.
Well, this is kind of some of the unique situations you run into when you got to put a rain barrel in, and somehow homeowners are thinking of innovative ways to use their barrels. And this one is underneath the porch of the house. So that's how that one's going to be used. This is, again, under actually a deck. So this one is used because there's a small garden planting in front of this one. This one is a unique situation because, as you can see, there's a tube, there's a hose running from it, so it's used to water the hostas. But to get the water out better, it's also set up on 8 cinder blocks instead of the normal floor to give the gravity more force to get the water out better. This, of course, is the daisy chaining of 2 hydro barrels. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see one has a red spigot and the other has a plug. Well, that red spigot part is going to be used to go into a raised garden bed.
Well, it's just marvelous what you're doing. Last question is, and you've got 10 seconds. What do you see for the adoption of rain barrels over the next 5, 10, or 15 years by homeowners? And got to be quick.
Well, it's as stormwater and environmental issues develop, this is going to be one of the methods we help to manage it.
That's fantastic. Brian Rodgers, the Constituent Services Worldwide, thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet. As we move forward through the 21st century, there are real emphasis on green jobs and green businesses. Very important as far as the future of employment, creation of new green businesses to provide stability for families, communities, and, of course, their nations. And so Brian Rodgers is with us. He's the Director of Conservation and Sustainability of Constituent Services Worldwide. And we're going to be talking about some of the green jobs training happening around rain barrels and why this is so important. So, Brian, looking at what CSW is doing, how did you really get into the training arm of rain barrels and creating people that actually have the skill sets to go out and be employed almost immediately, but also allowing them to, if they want, to create their own new green businesses?
Well, good question, Sam. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Welcome.
Good. It started with a program from the Department of the Environment, actually a grant I received when I was working with one of the nonprofits I work with in the district, Green Spaces for DC. They decided to give us a grant to work with youth from the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services because they wanted to add an economic arm to the RiverSmart Homes program and an opportunity to train youth and get them involved in the economic side of the RiverSmart Homes program. So as you see here, this was one of the guys. We're teaching them about the parts and what it takes to build them. They were great. These young guys actually, a couple of them, if you go to the next slide, I'll show you. These are some of the parts that are involved. That's what I was talking about. These are the filters, the diverter boxes, and the tubes. So,
and the whole thing about this, Brian, is you're actually doing, in a sense, technology transfer into communities that traditionally have seen very little of that. And also you're training people within the communities not only to install and be a part of the front end of this, but also they can have their own business or can expand their job opportunities as doing long-term service and maintenance, correct?
Exactly. And it's also an education process because a lot of the folks that I dealt with in this particular project had never experienced anything like we were doing. Number one, on the installation side, and number two, there were parts of the city they haven't even uncovered. So this was a learning experience on multiple fronts. These two guys actually, we have a new training program that we did with the Department of, DC Water and UDC. The guy on the left actually went through the program and graduated, and now he has his own business. And the guy on the right actually is enrolled in the program and is now getting ready to be certified. So
I want to stop right here, Brian, and talk about why is it so important to have the creation of not only green jobs and underserved communities, but also to teach them and allow them to create their own new green businesses and be owners of their own business, even if it's a non-employee business or they have one or two workers that's working with them.
Well, first of all, the green industry is relatively still new. And there's a lot of fresh opportunities and ways it allows for new businesses to be created. This is one area. It's virtually no overhead. You can get started pretty quickly. Yes, there are facets of it as far as insurance and things like that we have to give them guidance on, but it's virtually it's self-regulating. You can pick your own schedule. And one of the coolest things I think about it is that when these guys develop their own businesses, they go back and get their buddies as employees. And therefore, you're actually contributing to a whole community of economically.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible where you actually have, I'm going back and forth between these two
Sure.
because I know these are two different programs, but the whole thing about allowing people to have their own business is really where we need to be going in the 21st century, is that larger and larger businesses are either closing or manufacturing overseas. But this is something to putting, as an example, these rain barrels and all these homes. This is something that's very difficult to outsource any other country. You have to have people right here. And you have a relatively simple technology that you're introducing, but yet it has profound impact.
Yes, and it's also, like I said, it's education for communities of color because we're so used to the standard jobs, the 9-to-5s, and this creates a whole different market. This new technology, the new green industry, is introducing people to a whole nother market area where they can control their own lives, create their own businesses. And like I said, they can go back, hire their buddies, family members, and create a business that's going to last them a long time. And this can be a secondary income also. This, you can regulate this so that in this respect, you can say, do this on the weekends, a couple hours a week, and still have a regular job. So it's also income supplemental.
Now, looking at this gentleman here carrying the barrel, I actually, when you came and put one in here, I actually lifted this. It's not very heavy. But why is it so important that the local community citizens be involved in learning long-term maintenance and to understand what's really going on around the rain barrels? How is that a gateway entry into the entire environmental concern and environmental movement?
Well, it's kind of one of the first steps you can introduce yourself to understanding what the green movement is all about. Knowing how to capture stormwater. And like I said, these practices have gone on for generations. So you're kind of identifying with some of the stories that, especially folks like from the islands, from Haiti, from the Caribbean, those guys were doing this a long time ago. So we're teaching a generational practice. Also, we're introducing them into the new generation. This program is, when they see it in the cities, they'll know what they're dealing with, and they will know what impacts they're making. So it's really a multifunctional program.
Yeah, and I think it's quite impressive when you have people from within the local community, because literally they can be going from job to job or their business activity and walk or take the local bus. In 5, 10 to 15 minutes, they're actually at a job site where they're actually having great impact on people that they probably know and been around most of their lives. So, how is this new generation of these entrepreneurs and these new trainees? How are they changing and helping to change the environments within which they find themselves in ways that they probably never even thought about, maybe even 1 or 2 years ago, let alone 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, one of the objectives the Department of Environment has made a real effort to do is to educate underserved and communities on how the environment is important to them. Usually folks are from on their day-to-day life, they don't worry about where the rain is going, what's happening around them in a lot of respects, because they're worried about bringing bread and food into the house. But now we're showing them a way you can make money and teach them at the same time. You're actually showing them, here's an environmental impact that you can help, and here's how it affects your everyday life at your house. So all of those kind of things make it more understandable for everybody to understand that contributing to this industry means you're actually making the planet a better place.
Now, involving women, we have one of your trainees here that's getting involved, and I know that you've been trying to recruit women into this. So why is it so important to have women involved in the Rain Barrel program, but also the 4 other branches of the RiverSmart Homes, RiverSmart Communities program, so that they are learning these skills as well?
Simple reason, Sam. Everybody plays a part. Women, children, men, everybody of all ages. So one of our training programs, we've graduated folks from the age of 18 to 70. So everybody has a chance. This is a career opportunity that anyone of any age, gender, anything can participate in and make an impact. Simple.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that's important about all this is, and you brought this up, and it's something we don't really think about, is where now you have people moving among communities, even as a city as small as Washington, D.C., even as our national capital. It's smaller than, small towns in many countries around the globe. But having this mix of people and training them how to do green jobs, and it allows them the freedom to move anywhere that they want to go. And people respect it. They respect you, and they want to know, because in many cases, you know something they don't know.
Well, actually, Sam, this is a global industry. you can translate these skills anywhere on the planet. So that's what makes it such a great thing to have in your tool belt.
Right, right. And it's very important that, everyone works together, collaborate. We're all in this together. The environment, Mother Earth is not a respecter of socioeconomic background or color, race, religion, any of that. We all have to protect Mother Earth. So, what do you think? And we have about 30 seconds for this question, Brian. What do you think that we're getting out of this that goes way beyond just the installation of rain barrels and capturing stormwater, groundwater, and processing it, using it, and getting us off of the centralized water system?
The
30
big thing,
seconds. Got to be quick.
the big things I think are, number one, education of the issues, the environmental issues we face, and two, that green can equal green. That you can bring home the bacon with green jobs.
Yeah, I tell you, that's something we have to really drive home and allow people to have the opportunities for that. This is Brian Rodgers. He's the Director of Conservation and Sustainability, Constituent Services Worldwide. Just talking about green job training, that's why it's so important, and how to use rain barrels as a catalyst to mix society, to address the environment, and protect Mother Earth as we create the Emerald Planet. As we move forward with a new green economy, new green jobs, and new green businesses, education is really at the center and core of all of this. And this is what we're going to be talking about as far as the rain barrels, the DOEE, Department of Environment and Energy in Washington, D.C., but yet there are best practices here that can be used all across the globe. So we have Brian Rodgers, who's the Director of Conservation Sustainability. This is the Constituent Services Worldwide. And we're going to be talking about education and certification, why they're so important. One is with the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professional Organization, and the other is the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program. And Brian's going to talk about both of those, but we're going to be seeing real people doing real things. And the training that these two organizations are involved in, you're actually going to be seeing people that have learned through these organizations, through the workshops, the seminars, and the courses, and actually applying these principles, these ideas, these processes, these best practices right in Washington, D.C. But again, these are available worldwide. Brian, welcome back.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and thank you for introducing both of these organizations. But tell us a little bit about each, and then I want to get into the images that you shared with us and how people are applying what they're learning actually in the communities and the impacts they are making in each one of these different projects we're going to be seeing.
Oh, thank you. The National Green Infrastructure Certification Program arose out of what's called the MS4 project that DC Water is doing throughout the city. The MS4 project is the Municipal Separate Stormwater Sewer System. So it basically is a big pipe. And they were just going to put a big pipe underground to help manage the stormwater that's flowing in the city.
Mm-hmm.
But through some negotiation and some rethinking, they decided to do some above ground elements to help with stormwater management. And so that involves the installation of different curbside and rain garden type structures throughout the city to help manage stormwater as it hits the street. Mm-hmm. So that's what the NGICP program arose of. It teaches the construction, maintenance, and inspection of these kind of installations. Mm-hmm. The Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals arose from the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Council. That's more built toward professionals that are already in the field, and that focuses more on the maintenance and inspection of these new best management practices.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And actually, I've been one of those over the years, have been actually trying to educate members of city council, professionals within city government, also in Maryland and Virginia, about the natural ways of dealing with stormwater, groundwater, how to capture that and put it to good use instead of just trying to process it and put it back into the rivers. But we're going to go through some of these, Brian, and I'm going to ask you just a few questions. But let's just kind of have a pace as we go through this. Tell us what we're looking at. But what I want more than just what we're looking at, Brian, is the impact it's having in each and every one of these different projects. So let's pace ourselves. We have enough time, but we want to be at a steady clip as well.
Sounds good. So in this first slide, what you're seeing is basically what's called bioretention in a bucket. The stormwater practices, the best management practices I was talking about, you have to understand what the concept is. So basically, the participants in the program, in the NGICP program, build these bioretention systems inside of a bucket, pour in basically dirty water and watch how it comes out and see how it purifies the water. So this is where they get to understand what all the stuff looks like. Same thing here. There's stones in the bottom of the cup, and therefore you pour them in and see how it washes over stones and eliminates byproducts.
Yeah, and I think what is interesting about this is, you're involving local citizens, getting them involved, but also the outcome of this is actually they may be able to set up their own new green business and their own green jobs. So, what is being incorporated in this so that when they leave here, it's not just something, well, that was a nice class that I took or a great course, but this is something that really can add to my future.
Well, one of the greatest parts about this program, and I have to give kudos to DC Water about this, the program actually, the graduates of the program are then entered into what DC Water calls DC Waterworks. So they build up a resume and a conglomerate of these kind of folks that have passed and graduated, and they're actually any job position that's open on a project that DC Water has in operation that involves green infrastructure. These guys are then able to fill those positions. So they actually interview for actual green job positions with contractors that are working on DC Water projects. And what's really great about that is that now DC Water is actually writing them into their contracts that for these projects.
I just think this is incredible. Look at the number of people here that are learning about this. This is, the rain gardens that are being put in. I know this is a different area of the city where I am, but there's 12 of these, a dozen of these within less than about 8 minutes of my house. And they're adding more of these. And of course, then they're putting in the pavers in the alleyways. So this is really extending across the whole city. So why is that so important that we have the citizens from the city that you're seeing right here, along with the professionals, of course, but spreading it across all 8 wards of the city? And what does that mean for internationals watching this and wanting to incorporate this, whether it's Tokyo or London or Bonn, Germany, or Pretoria in South Africa? Why are these projects so important?
Well, because stormwater knows no bounds. It's in every country, it's in every city, especially it's especially prevalent in cities, but even in the countrysides and in hillsides, there are issues that stormwater brings that these particular kind of installations can help kind of manage. So, like I said, no matter where you are, stormwater is an issue, especially with this kind of with global warming.
And having citizens involved, actually, my Rotary International Club, the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C., actually is providing funding to this project we're looking at right here. And they almost every weekend, they have what they call volunteer parties, work parties, and people from around the district and even from the surrounding states here come in for these projects. What are they learning in this open air classroom, if you will, that they're probably not going to be learning if they're just sitting in a classroom or just trying to find out online about what it is to be concerned about the environment? What are they learning with these shovels and the rakes and the forks that you really need to be out there to learn it?
Well, Sam, some people are classroom learners. Some people are in the ground folks. I'm an in the ground folk.
Mhm.
And what makes it all worthwhile is actually taking what's in the book and putting it into practice. And that's exactly what this is. This class actually is a landscape education class. The young lady there, she's LEED certified. So she's teaching them how to maintain best management practices, which is one of the real key things. It's great to install projects, but if the projects fail if they aren't maintained.
Right. Well, the whole thing about it too is having certification. This is something that I've been talking about for years, that when you do this training, if you go through it, everyone needs a certificate to say that they actually did this, a little background about what they actually learned and how they can apply it. Why is a certification and the certificates themselves so critically important to people in the inner city, or if they're in a very rural area, to have this type of recognition?
Well, one, not only the sense of accomplishment, but also there's a difference between certification involves more of an intricate game plan where you can really go out and you're learning real practical skills to go out and make an impact at a job, in a community, in a thought process. So therefore, this program does all three. You actually can go out in the field and work with a job and create projects and maintain them, but also you have the wherewithal to be able to know how those projects to other people and especially your family members and the members of your community.
Yeah.
And with that certification, you're also bringing home the bacon to your community. You're showing, hey, I'm participating, and I'm going to show you something new and different.
Yeah.
So that's what's so great about it.
I think it's critically important. We're going to go out on this. We're about running out of time, Brian. So I'm just going to kind of stroll. And again, how they're impacting the communities. And let's be quick on each one so we can get all the slides, because these are great, great images and great projects.
So this is an installation over in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. And as you actually can see, this is right across from homes. This is a bioretention right in Oxen Run Park.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. This is over in Oxen Run Park. You can see the two different inlets. And this is what you call.
I think these are great to have these side by side, because they're very different, but yet having similar impacts. We're going to have several images of this. Tell us what we're seeing and why is it so different than the two that we just saw.
So this is more street side curb cut. And in this one, as you see those levels, these are called weirs. They work to, say, for instance, when the first section fills up, it flows over into the next. But this is one of the key things. This was really filled with plants at one point, and as you can see, from a lack of maintenance, that's what happened. This is pretty much the same thing. This is curbside over in Northeast DC. And this one you see is lush and has been maintained.
Really pretty.
This is our rain barrel guys. So this is some of the NGICP guys learning it. You learn a little bit about everything. And that's what I think is really important about the program. It's a gateway.
Yeah.
It's a gateway into so many different areas. And when you find out what you feel like you want to participate in, where you want to make an impact, here, this is the Summer Youth Employment Program. Now, not only do these guys in the yellow vest who are NGCP, IGCP graduates getting job training and experience, they're actually teaching young folks,
I think
not
this is
being future
absolutely
stewards.
fantastic, Brian. Thank you for being with us. Brian Rodgers, Director of Conservation Sustainability, Constituent Services Worldwide, talking about the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professional and NGICP as we create the Emerald Planet.